What do roofing, cannabis, and private equity readiness have in common? Mike Pachan, is that right, Mike?
You nailed it. Yep.
Mike Passion, like the word passion, the passion of Christ. In this episode, we explore how Mike transformed chaos into clarity, aligning people, profit, process, and purpose, the three Ps. Whether you're scaling a team, prepping for investors, or rebuilding your operations from the inside out, let's get real talk, no fluff.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show, where you will discover how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream. Paul Guyan, the mastermind behind the Lead Machine, introduces you to trailblazers who inspire you to implement life-changing solutions and systems you can model to nurture your leads and get your offers seen by your ideal clients who will invest in themselves and you. Be sure you visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, tune in and get ready to transform your vision into reality.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyan, your host, the Lead Machine coach, and founder of the Lead Machine Marketing Group and Mastermind. And I'm dedicated to helping you tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream life. So whether you're just getting started or you want to take your business and life to the next level, let's get this conversation started and turn your dreams into reality. Well, today's guest is Mike Pachan. He's a business builder who thrives at the intersection of grit and growth. With over 15 years of shaping strategy and scaling companies in diverse industries, including roofing and cannabis, Mike knows how to bring structure to chaos and lead teams through significant transformation. We've had a lot of guests recently who've been focusing on leadership, so this should be a real good dive from a different perspective. So whether he's launching product lines, guiding private equity negotiations, or overhauling ops from the ground up, Mike brings hustle, not handouts. So let's dive in. Well, welcome to the show, Mike. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for getting on the show. We met on podcastguests.com, and I recommend that for any of you podcaster hosts or guests who want to get on good shows, so like this one. And so thank you and welcome.
Yeah, Paul, thanks for having me. Great intro there. Glad to be part of the show today. A lot of people will hear roofing and cannabis, and if you look at them as separate industries, not one that's used by the other, they'll often say, how is there overlap? And I think that there's a ton of overlap, and I'm really excited to have transitioned into the trades. Coincidentally enough, when I was in the cannabis space and I saw the end of the heyday coming and was looking at what to do next, the trades were on my mind from the very beginning of that pivot. Thought about going to get some certifications in a trade, ended up, falling into a company to help build them. The cannabis space was disruptive in a variety of manners. We disrupted big, long-standing Red Sea industries. We disrupted status quo. We disrupted state constitutions. And then we got to a point where the market opened up so much, we disrupted mindsets that people had from a false perspective for decades. The roofing and especially the trades in general is also now becoming disruptive. I brought on a young 23-year-old sales rep this year, and he told me that trades is the new hack for young people to make money. Social media is starting to wind down. We're seeing more money come into the trades, and people are demanding a more professional client experience in the trades. And all that is very disruptive to the status quo of what's been the trades the whole time, which is you get what you get. I'll show up when I want, deal with it because you can't do this. And it's really interesting to watch an old industry start to change rapidly.
Yeah, disruption, and the payment industry, the way that cannabis, the way that the money flows, and all that had to be adapted and changed. So there's a lot of adapting and business lessons from being in that industry and then going into a trade industry, there's certainly a lot of overlap because at the end of the day, you're delivering a customer experience, which leads me to my first question was you said that companies should hold off on C-level titles. Why is that, and what happens when they hand them out too early?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for instance, just kind of my story, my business partner and I started out Low Spark, which ended up being the largest wholesale distributor of cannabis in the state of Colorado, therefore by default in the country at the time, because we were the only ones operating like that.
Yeah.
Um, and it was him and I. So my title was sales. I went out and brokered deals between above board cultivation and above board retail locations. We hired on our first sales guy. I bumped my title up to sales manager. Now I'm managing someone. We
Hmm.
brought on more people. I adjusted my title to director of operations. We hit 12 people and we're the biggest in the state. I upgraded my title to chief of operations. I earned that title, and that
Yeah.
title made sense to the scale of the company and the growth of the company.
Yeah.
If you just start slapping on C-level titles because it looks good on a business card, if it's not matching the scale of your company, it really isn't doing anyone any good. Because realistically, a C-level operator should be running the business, not working in it. A
Hmm.
C-level operator by law has to make a certain percentage of what the company makes. You can't underpay a C-level operator. They have to make top line revenue. So are you doing that? There's so many nuances where, to me, it makes the business look like it's trying too hard and isn't embracing those early stages where you're ready for
Yeah.
growth. And it's also sort of like that fake it till you make it mentality, reward yourself when it's earned. But if you're faking it till you make it, why not get into the reality of your business and work from a very rooted perspective?
Well, that makes total sense. And and I guess that ties into what does operational readiness mean for a founder-led business looking to grow and attract investors? Because, if you're the CEO, you might have, in the eyes of an investor, do they see through that or do they respect that more?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, any of us who've thrived at that level, and definitely anyone who's ran the gauntlet of small business ownership, I mean, you can pick out people who are over titled real quick.
Yeah.
Again, deferring off to the cannabis because I spent so many years in it, I would be interviewing people and I would always have a business card sitting next to me with my title COO because I'd earned it. And they would say, "What's the growth potential here?" And I'd slide that business card over and I'd say, "Scratch your name, scratch my name out, put yours on it. I don't want to be COO. I want to be boots on the ground grunt." Because if I can get you to COO, the company's making enough money, we'll go reinvest into something else. I don't want to be C-level. I want to be seed level. I want to go start the new thing. And,
Yeah.
so it's title is a title. It's really the work that you're putting in. And it doesn't take long for a group of investors to look around and go, "You got it, you don't, you got it, you don't." That's not a great look in those meetings. And then, I read a great post on LinkedIn about people taking equity, and a lot of people don't know that 1% gets diluted down to 0.1%. You get in a room with full of sharks, man, and there's all kinds of tricks. You're going to get duped. So you're really setting yourself up to have the jokes on
Mm.
you.
Huh. So explain operational readiness then. I asked you
Yeah.
several questions
Sure.
in that.
Operational
Go ahead.
readiness to me is, you know, when we bring people onto the roofing company as a new hire, it's very well thought out, right? From the way they walk into that door
Hmm.
on day one, sitting in front of their chair is every piece of the sales kit, from the inspection equipment to a ladder to a laptop to an iPad to their shingle samples. There's a welcome letter. All their paperwork has been filled out. On the big screen, there's a welcome to Blue Peaks Roofing. We dive into mission, vision, values. We go through the whole kit and caboodle on day one. That way, they're immersed inside of an experience and they're already connecting to the brand. From there, we have a
Yeah.
whole series of education, continued education to get them inside a dedicated workflow.
Hmm.
Having SOPs written down on a dusty book is just like having an employee handbook. You know, if you and I write a bunch of sports plays and set them on the coffee table, it doesn't make us head coaches. What makes you a head coach is being able to know that playbook inside and out and get people to interact inside that. That's operational readiness. It's not
Okay.
items written down on checklists. It's being able to deliver that message so that people react to it in the way that you want. So you're e-mything, you're Ray Krocking your model, and things move according to a workflow, which then gives you an ability to build a client experience.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned the onboarding process because that's so important. And I ask a lot of business owners this question. And because from my upbringing, the golden rule and treating others the way you should be treated, the core values of ownership of the founder, that needs to live on in the culture of the business, or it should, anyways. Many companies, including the ones that I've worked for or worked with and work with, uh, have gotten to a point where those core values were stripped away and they just did not live on. And so it went from a family oriented business with, do you care about me? Lou Holtz kind of uh, teaching and strategy to I don't care about you because you can tell by the policies I've done and the way I treat everyone has changed because of middle management and maybe overturn of leadership and things like that. So how do you keep that culture alive that you've established from the beginning?
That's a difficult part, right? It's
Yeah,
very easy. It's easy to teach, it's easy to coach, it's easy to say. It's difficult to tend to, right?
yeah,
Like it's like planting a garden, you get things up and running, and that's when your problems set in, right? That's when your powdery
yeah.
mildew, your bugs set in. And then to harvest is another systematic process. Germination can be systematized, harvest can be systematized. The in between is
Mhm.
where you get all your wrenches thrown at you. It doesn't take much to interfere with a culture. It doesn't take a whole lot of people on the team to say, I'm not doing it. And it's like the whole weak link theory, right? The people who don't want to participate in it will overwhelm and unsatisfy the people who want to. And when people feel unsatisfied, they're not going to reach. Like John Maxwell talks about law of the lid, they're going to limit themselves. They don't want to be the hardest worker in the room, especially if other folks are retaining a status quo where it's not a raised lid. For me, it's trying to get buy-in from the people who own or operate the company and showing them a financial reward, right? Because a lot of those people are more financially driven than people driven. But if
Yeah.
you're not people driven, your cash flows and your revenues are going to suffer. So showing them the buy-in and then letting, you know, not, I also have a saying, right? Like, not all leaders are coaches. Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
A leader is to me in a broad definition is someone with a type A personality, and people are drawn to type A's because they're problem solvers. They'll get in the mix and solve problems for the type
Yeah.
B's behind them. That can be a leader. That leader may not be able to coach how they
Hmm.
problem solve or coach someone to be a better salesperson, admin, operational, cultivator, but they're still technically a leader.
Mm.
They themselves, if they don't want to buy in, they at least need to be using the language so that the B team is buying in, which will by default make their life easier. And then over time, they'll start to percolate in. But, a lot of people hear this and they're like, well, I can't do it, so I'm just going to nix it. You should at least do your best to participate in it so other people, especially that are supporting your role, are going to excel.
Yeah. One of my guests was talking about how when they give feedback, they tie it to the core values of their company. Is that how you approach that as well?
A lot of times, absolutely. We have core beliefs on the wall, mission, vision, values on the wall. What I teach is internal language. Internal language allows team members to communicate, especially during conflict. A lot of people
Hmm.
will avoid conflict, which then is like having the lid on a pot and you're going to boil over. So we teach internal language, you know, hey, Paul, appreciate your help on this, but that was actually kind of a poor baton pass, right?
Yeah.
I'm downstream from you, so that checklist is important. And using that internal language becomes a way to have light conflict inside the systems. I'm not having conflict because I don't like you or I don't like your performance. I'm having a conflict because it's not inside the systems. How do you talk that through? And I
Yeah.
believe firmly in internal language and sort of labeling your processes, whether it's unique to you or you go take someone else's label. But that way your team members can actually have their own small internal conflicts, which lifts the steam off the vessel and things don't come out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me.
You bet.
Team meetings get a bad rap. So what's the rule of thumb? And have them shelve them or restructure them or stand up while you're doing it. There's
I think team
lots of
meetings
people
are
about
so important. They're so
yeah.
important, and yet they get a bad rap. But also, a lot of things get a bad rap, right? Like things get a little tropey these days. I can't stand when people tell me it's all about relationships. I'm like, why? Maybe my relationship is getting in professionally. I sold a ton of cannabis for several people in Colorado and never met them. Our relationship was a financial based relationship. They didn't want to go to lunch. They laughed every time I asked. I'd ask twice a year. Nope, keep making me money, keep making you money. Okay, never met the guys. Did really
Yeah.
well with them. That was our relationship. So when people say this stuff, sometimes it gets diluted, right? So when people talk about team meetings, the impact of what a good team meeting could be gets diluted by people who say we have to have meetings but don't really put any thought into it, right? Think about it
Mm,
like a party, right? Like you get invited to a party, like, well, if we were younger we talk about a house party. Now guys like you and I, right, we're going to birthday parties, right?
yeah.
People who have a party, who know how to have you into their home and make you feel good, and there's a value to giving up your time on a Saturday. That's a fun party. Then you go to other parties and you're like, is there anything to eat here? Like we're sitting, what line? Like what? How we sitting? You got water in a glass. Like that's kind of a metaphor for a good team meeting, bad team meeting. And then also like a concept that I've used for decades is it's called a weekly email. Every week I start a new weekly email, and it's a thread throughout the company I'm with, and everyone gets to chime in and pour into it. That's technically a team meeting all week, every week. What
Huh.
important thing did you see? Offer it in, throw it in the bucket. That keeps people connected and chattering. And then when you have to have your regular team meetings, get in and have a point and purpose. You can have a 4-hour team meeting that blows people's minds and it's high value. You can have a 4-minute meeting and have no value. It's not even a measure of time, it's a measure of value.
Yeah.
What value did you give to the guest at your home to make them feel warm and comfortable and get something out of that? If you're not focused on your team meetings like that, then they're probably poor and people are probably just snoozing through them.
Yeah. And I've been in meetings where the leader of the meeting wants feedback. He invites feedback, but the participants are afraid to give it. And the reason they're afraid to give it is because number one, they don't think leadership is going to do anything about what's brought up in the meeting. And number two, they feel like they're tattling on the other departments who may or may not be present. And number three, they feel like they might get stabbed in the back by their coworker, which is a really toxic kind of culture. But
Yeah.
that's the company has a pretty good culture, but meetings they're more of a they're less of a getting feedback and they're more of here's what's going on, kind of thing. So this it's not a collaborative kind of thing, which is really what it's meant to be.
I would
So
totally agree with that. It's getting in, and a leader should be saying, you know, hit me with it, right? What are you seeing? What are your pain points this week? How can we make some adjustments? Does anyone have any tools that they created out of the systems that have made your lives easier? Let's get that out on
Yeah.
the table. How else can I help? Asking questions. How else can I help? Taking a note, actually responding to stuff like that. The role of a leader becomes, if you're a real leader, you should be a little bored, in a sense of you should not have a whole lot of like tactile items going on. Your items should be more out in the ether. Like it shouldn't
Yeah.
be, I got to run around and push this paperwork. It should be, I got to get to this meeting with Johnny Susie because they had a concern and we're going to figure this stuff out. It's more brain power based than skills based.
Yeah, and like Ray Kroc, or not Ray Kroc, but Michael Gerber talks about working on your business
Yep.
instead of working in your business. And so when you have a leader who's got roles in a small growing company, you've got both. You're the technician and you're the leader. And at some point you need to transition out of that role, that either hire someone to be the leader or become the leader and ditch the operations.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, currently at the roofing company, and I coined this phrase, manager dash less, manager less systems. I don't want a bunch of overhead. I don't want a bunch of managers. What's their role to point out things people are doing wrong? No
Yeah,
thanks. Like we'll
yeah,
find the right people, make them autonomous and coach from a strategic standpoint. Um, but a bloated manager based system is just not the way ahead. It's archaic.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, exactly. When a company grows, they do need to retool as they go. Those roles need to change. The founder might need to become the CEO and work on the long-term vision of the company. Bring in, have plans for succession and those kinds of things. Investing. Uh, so certainly that's a reality. But there's that messy part in between. I think that sometimes businesses get stuck in.
Yeah, they really can, right? Like an entrepreneur, the reason that we're a rare breed is when you first start a business, a lot of it is you, right? So you have to be a
Yeah,
jack of all trades, which means by default, you're a master of nothing, and that's what you need to be.
yeah,
You also set an expectation of yourself and you're self-driven, and you expect that out of others, and it's just not going to happen. When you go
right.
to start your first round of scale and pushing out, a lot of times you're hiring whoever will do the work. There's going to be some washout, or you're going to allow some habits to be there just for the sake of getting that work off your plate. All right, I got a sales guy. He kind of closes deals ish. I'll go out, tee him up. He can do the rest. Well, then you look to really push scale and you bring in high level people, and they don't want to deal with willy nilly. They don't want the junk. So they're going to
Yeah,
demand better. And then it's a matter if the entrepreneur can actually become a CEO and work on the business, not in it, find their role and delegate and strategically help others operate or get in the way. And that's just a growth phase a lot of businesses don't get out of. And to be honest, I think it's a growth phase a lot of businesses shouldn't even try to get out of. If you can find people and just do willy nilly, just do it. If everyone's making a living and they're okay with it, let it be. But if you really want to push outward, you're going to have to bring in some professionals and they're going to demand a higher level of operational integrity than some people can provide. And that's also why you see when businesses get acquired, the CEO gets pulled out, set on a board, patted on the head. You did a great job, but you ain't the guy. Right?
yeah.
We're bringing in a real CEO to let this thing rip.
Yeah, especially if your intent is to sell your business, which likely might be, or hand it over to your children, sell it to your children, however you're going to succeed, to phase yourself out of the business. You need to have systems and processes that are repeatable that can run without you, and that's what you should be working on as you're growing.
Yeah.
And I think you need to do it while you're growing. It's what I call the power of incremental action, is where
Mm.
you say, "Oh, I've got a bottleneck here. I need to work on that. I need to spend some extra time and put a system in place, or a person to handle that, so that so that doesn't become a bottleneck for growth. Because if you look at your operation and you 10x it, you can see that, oh gosh, I wouldn't be able to keep up with invoicing if I 10x my company. So I need to have better processes there. So it's a exercise I take my clients through uh, when they're wanting to scale.
I think it's a great point that you bring up. And then you also use the word exercise, right? What is exercise? Exercise is incremental growth.
Yeah.
Trust me, as someone who had a part-time fitness brand while I was in the cannabis industry, you don't show up to the gym one day and you're just not there, right? It takes
Hmm.
time. A hard part for entrepreneurs is similar to letting your kids go off to college. They can't let go of the business or certain parts of the business. So if they're working on incrementally, it's like exercise. They're getting better by the week, by the month, by the quarter, by the year to start to draw out of the business and trust that other people can step in and be dedicated to that specific item. Maybe not the whole business. That takes 18-hour days. People don't want to do that. But those specific items, rather than getting snapped and tried to pull back from it, most people can't let go of their baby that quick.
Yeah, yeah, and so doing things incrementally can help with letting go,
Yep.
like delegating tasks that you might not be good at, and when you started out, you had to do it because it was just you. But there are things that you're good at that you continue to do those, but at some point you need to work yourself out of it.
And then also just look at those, having people look at those tasks that they are good at, but knowing it may plug into a new system that's even more organized than what was present when they grew the business. So limit
Yeah,
yourself on that task, like networking or closing a deal, but passing it down to an assistant who can fill out the needed details because the more systems are more intricate. And again, just really focusing on the couple of things that you're hyper good at and then getting the heck out of your team's way, so
yeah,
that they can really show you their dedication to the business, the brand, and the growth strategy, and then reward that.
yeah, yeah. I like that. So, back on communication and culture, my speed framework emphasizes fast human connection, or rather, fast human communication, especially with regards to customer service and new business, new leads that come to the business. What's your take on that, and what breaks down faster, communications or cash, and which hurts more?
Ooh, no, that's great. Right in my training manual, I have written down, and I've been saying this for years. Everyone says cash is king in a business, and I couldn't disagree more. Communication
Uh-huh.
trumps cash all day long. If you're not
Yeah.
communicating to your clients, you're not going to make money. If your team's not communicating internally, you're going to burn money. If you're not communicating to the A-list players who keep your company moving, they're going to turn over and your business is going to dry up and the cash is going to go away. Um, Communication to me is way more important than cash. When we started Low Spark, I threw in $5,000 and we were doing 18.5 million in sales every year for 3 years. That was a great investment, right? That was not a
Yeah.
lot of cash, but what separated us, we were going out into the market and I would show up to a cultivation facility and I'd say, hey, the current market demand, the market could eat 250 to 300 pounds today if we had it. Why do you have 25, 50, 75 pounds sitting here? Same thing. Guy like you showed up, never got back to me. Okay, there's the bar, right? I have to
Yeah.
communicate out to my network. They have to know I'm going to follow through. They'll give me a bid. I have to communicate it to him. He'll accept the bid. I have to exchange goods, get cash back, paperwork, legalities, everything, boom, on to the next deal. And that took, just a rate of communication and organization that other people couldn't do. I tell people all the time, don't let the long hair fool you. I'm actually pretty organized. Um, and that set us apart. That was our niche. In roofing, what I tell the team is, and I used to do this in cannabis sales, if you assume every homeowner thinks you're dumb, you're going to win, because people have an archetype of a contractor in their head. If you can beat that archetype, you're going to win. Pick up the phone, get right back to them. Touch
Mhm.
base weekly minimum. Zero is still a number. If you have nothing to say to someone, that's what you say. just checking in. I have
Yeah.
nothing to report because I'm still waiting on bids. You don't even have to apologize. Just say that.
Yeah.
And that keeps people from coming back to that archetype in their head. And that's how you win over your competition.
Yeah. My mother-in-law had her roof done last year,
I'm
and she's a
sorry.
widow.
Sorry she had to go through that.
She's a widow, and she's in her mid 80s, and her husband passed away 2 years ago, and so she's getting the house the way she wants it.
Yeah.
And she knew that she hadn't been done in a while. And my son is actually was working for a roofer, and so he put in a bid, but it took him about 3 4 days to come around and give an estimate. The other company, there were two other companies that came, and one of them came right away. They gave an estimate. They followed up. They followed up. They followed up. They followed up, and they were a little bit higher than my son's bid, and they got the business because they followed up.
Yep.
And that's what people expect today. They expect instantaneous. They're used to instantaneous everything because that's what the expectation is these days. They want instant gratification. And when it comes to if you're a service provider, just like what happened to my son, if you get a phone call and they're looking to get a job done, and you don't answer and follow up, they're going to go to the next guy,
Yes.
and the next guy who follows up with them. And even if they're a little more expensive, that follow up will make a world of difference. So that, yeah, you're saying the archetype of a contractor is if you follow up, not like a contractor does,
Yep.
if you follow up like an organized business person, you're going to get more deals. There's
You
just
will.
no
Yeah. And
question.
that was it is, you know, exactly. So we beat that archetype. And then when we were in cannabis, I was dealing with the archetype, selling to them, and they didn't like the archetype that they were because those people couldn't close deals. So it was a very interesting scenario. And we're the archetype, but high level, we're the white collar weed people, I guess you could say, if you just want to say it like that. And we just knew how to turn deals, and that was the difference between us and everyone else on the block. And that's where I think contracting is going. People are smart these days. People don't
Yeah.
want sales on things because, for instance, my wife and I are looking at our next vehicle. Mazda CX-50 caught my eye. Great car. Toyota owns 20% of them. Quality's going through the roof. You can get them for under 30,000, right? Check, check, check. All-wheel drive, check. I didn't learn all that from going to the dealership. I don't want to go to the dealership right now. I learned all that from YouTube. A guy named
Yeah.
Scotty Kilner, who has like 6 million followers. He's crazy. He taught me everything I need to. All I need out of the dealer is to process my paperwork. I already
Yeah.
have a loan from the bank. I want to show up, and what I want is a sales experience from them is be in and out in 45 minutes, and I'll give them 5-star review. I don't need sold on the car. When I show up to someone's house, they already know what a class 4 shingle is. They might even know what color they want. I don't need to get in there and sell. I need to get in there, and the relationship they want is professionalism. I'm not going to waste time talking about chickens and ducks and homesteading together and all these commonalities. I'm going to get in. What do you need? Process the deal. Bang, quality, callbacks, zip it up, and then maybe I'll get to know you at the last handshake, final walkthrough.
Yeah, I love that. I bet your clients love that too. So
I think that's the way it's going these days. Expedited, right? It's not
yeah,
transactional, it's just expedited professionalism.
yeah, and that's part. I mentioned my speed framework, and another component is systemizing and prioritizing. So you coach teams through chaos and cohesion. In that speed framework, we talk about systematizing, prioritizing. What's one overlooked system that gives business the speed back that they need?
I think the basics of comms, COMMS. I was not a military guy. Hats off to anyone who was. I love reading about the military. I love how
Yeah.
efficient it is. SEAL Team
Mm.
6's entire ethos is move, shoot, communicate. And 10 guys with that ethos can outweigh on a battlefield 300 guys. So I use short words when I coach. Calm, communication, calm channels. There's 4 in our business: text, phone, CRM, email. Getting down to the basics of which channel is used for which situation and then mandating that will make or break you. If my phone rings right now, it's an emergency and I might have to pause this podcast because my phone should never ring. I
Yeah.
teach all the young guys, they have to go on and watch a YouTube of Inspector Gadget. He'd read that message and it'd explode. He only need that information for right then and there. If you text me, it is not my responsibility or anyone else's responsibility to ever retain that information. It's instantly gratified. It's gone. Here at the homeowner, 10 minutes late, just out. Something I can just hear and digest and be done. CRM, legally documentable items regarding the client that backs up into your email. Your email is your dashboard to always know what's going on in your CRM. CRM and email, if you can perfect those two, you can do so much more, and you want to get rid of text and phone.
Get rid of text and phone.
For the most part, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I say phone calls for like, oh shoot moments, right? Like you need some information instantaneously. That way, if my phone does ring, I'm on it. I also teach people, I used to watch a lot of X-Files, love how Mulder would pick up his flip phone, he'd flip it and he'd say, go. They'd tell him a message and he'd just hang up on him. If you call me, do not expect a formal conversation. I'll say, go, you tell me, I'll tell you, and then I'll hang up and on to the next thing. That's a professional strategy that works. Otherwise, you got people calling you going, hey, this thing with Johnny Susie coming up in 2 weeks. Here's information. I passed the buck to you. Now it's off my plate. No, it isn't. Not in the companies I help run. That should have went in the CRM for any other team member to have access to that information. That's their responsibility to call them correctly in the right channel.
Gotcha. Now, so what about speaking of comms, so communications channels is another thing that is part of speed and execution and responding to a customer. If you get a channel that comes in from your Instagram or from your YouTube, if you get a request for a quote there, do you respond in that channel or do you respond in a different channel?
We would respond to them to let them know we understand the request, and we would do our best to bump it over into a formal channel such as the
Right.
CRM, so it's traceable. Out here in Colorado, email is lightly legal, right? So if you send me a changed color and we don't have time to do a change order form, or you're just terrible at getting back to me and that's going to stale the deal out, I can use that email to say, hey, Paul wants dove gray drip edge, not ivory, because he just said it in an email. So again, if you have those proper calm channels, you can even protect yourself a little bit on a legal end if things go awry on the build.
Gotcha. So what's your method for scaling your culture when your company is moving so fast, especially across what we've talked about, the changing of roles and maybe locations?
New people want it. When you interview new people, they go, man, this is really what I've been looking for. Is this actually real? Yep, it
Yeah.
is. And then you have to just keep letting the upper tiers know, you don't participate in this. That's going to be your choice, but don't come down and dilute it, because, that base level day-to-day operators, team members in your company are so important. You can stack all the C-level premier talent up top that you want. If you don't have the boots on the ground to do the day-to-day, and you're just in a boardroom managing boardrooms,
Yeah.
So I love to see the buy-in from the day-to-day. That can excite leadership and upper levels to start to participate. It also gives an opportunity to start to percolate up and, have an instance with a leader and upper level and go, you've complained about this a couple of times, but do you see how this person made progress here? If you buy into the systems, you can actually be a change agent and get this issue out of the way once and for all. So it gives you, for instance, some there examples.
Gotcha. Very interesting. One of the things that you mentioned in your application to be on the show was private equity, and we haven't really talked much about that. So, uh, what can you tell our audience about um, getting a cash infusion and the private equity? I don't even know what the right question is to ask because I don't have much experience there, but
Yeah.
you do. So, enlighten us.
Yeah. So, in the cannabis, we helped a few companies do some raises. Obviously, those were a little bit different deals, and the interest rates were significantly different. And then in roofing, we took a look at it. Currently paused it, but we did spend 14 months, going through interviews and meetings. A big suggestion to people is take a few months to really figure out what you want. Do you want to sell the business and be done with it? Do you want to sell the business and remain in it? Do you want to sell the business and have your business be the template for the larger project going on? Find that distinction. If you want to sell the business and be out of it, really spend some time and money with your attorney and talk about the conversations you should be having. You know, if you get stuck in a program like an earnout and they're going to pay you so much up front, but the rest, comes after you perform and we get to see what you do. There's so many ways to never get paid on deals like that.
Mm,
If you're excited about handing your team down points in this big deal, you need to do some research on dilution, right? Because the big investors are going to get 2x preferred, and just because you might have a point or two now, by the time they continue to raise money, you're going to be so diluted, they're going to be asking you for money. And if you can't pay it, you lose your shares. Um, so, what do you really want? Are you the right person to stay in it and continue to scale, or do you want your out? And I don't blame you if you want your out, take the money. And if you can put your team in good hands, or at the very least, if you've done your job, your team has a heck of a resume that you can back and they can go on to the next thing too. Um, there's some excellent podcasts out there. There's a lot of terminology. Um,
yeah.
and then it's also a matter of, a lot of these people are coming in with a predetermined way to then run the business. Are you going to still have decision making in it? A lot of times the answer is going to be no. The platform is what they're going to call it. Are you going to be the platform? Is Ray Kroc going to buy the restaurant and the name and then use that as a template across the country? That's a much different deal than just buy me out. I'll hang out for 4 months and I'm gone. And again,
Gotcha.
what are the numbers? We'll give you this if you're the platform. We'll only give you this if you scatter. There might be more value in this one than you're actually going to get out of it here. And I think that, is it a branded house or a house of brands, right? A house of brands is like Marriott by Hilton. Are you going to be underneath that? We saw a lot of them who wanted to mandate a tech stack that just seemed a little overdone. There's simpler ways to do things. So what does that look like? What tech stack? I think also too, looking at the culture of the people that are buying you. And I mean, that word is pretty expansive and can mean a lot of things. What
Yeah.
what type of people are they? In cannabis, the thing we saw with all the people coming in is going back to the, people thinking you're dumb thing. They thought we were dumb and they thought we were leaving a lot of nickels on the table. They thought what the cannabis industry wanted was to come in and corporatize it. So they brought in, high bigwigs from Sephora and all these brands. And it just didn't work in the industry. What I used to tell people, the cannabis space is like falling out of a raft out here in Colorado going down the river. First thing you do is put your feet up, lay back and relax. You're going to hit rocks. It's going to be rough. Put your feet up, go down. If you fight the chaos, you're going to get hurt. Those people didn't know how to fight chaos. They were so used to
Uh,
demanding organization and the industry didn't give it to them that a lot of those, they went belly up. So if you're looking at a PE coming in, do they think they're going to take over your industry, or are they paying to buy into something to add some value to it? Those are two different mindsets.
Gotcha. So there's a lot of variables, just like anything in life. You want to be clear about what you want and seek wise counsel
Yeah.
before you dip into it.
And
And
don't be afraid
maybe
to say no, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm sure you went through this when my wife and I were looking for a house. Every time you walk into a home when you're on the market, man, you just fall in love with it. And then you get rejected 10 times. You find the one you should be in and it's fantastic. And you look back and you're like, I'm glad I didn't do that. Don't be afraid to
yeah,
say no. There's
yeah,
especially in the trades, there's so much PE right now. Say no. A lot of times those people will circle back to you too. A no is not a definitive no because they'll go out and see what's really out there too. If you're offering something special, your phone will ring again. I would put 16 to 18 months down to get to an agreement with your preferred investor. I would honestly
uh-huh.
book that much time in your schedule. I think if
Mhm.
you're going to do it correctly.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, that was a master class there. Just kind of scratching the surface, but yet lots of things to consider. Uh, Before we go, we're getting towards the end, but I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. The first question is I like to ask is, what question do you wish I would have asked you that I didn't ask?
Um, you know, a lot of people, a lot of people want to know how I got my start in the cannabis industry, and I think it's a really unique story.
Okay.
I came out here with a point and purpose of zero. I just wanted to figure things out in Colorado. When you got out here, they were doing ads on the radio, but it was super young. The industry was brand new. I moved out to Ski Town to relax and find myself, which I ended up doing. Some people don't.
Yeah.
Made it to off season, hadn't saved any money. Didn't, I didn't even know there was an off season. I expected full employment. And, I was kind of getting my faith journey back in a way,
Hmm.
a little esoteric at the time, which has now brought me full Catholic practicing again. So thankful for that small esoteric leap.
Praise to God.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to put my headphones in and trust this process. I've been told I should trust a process.
Yeah.
And apparently God heard me because he's like, all right, I'll be your process. And I put my headphones on, was walking up the street, and everything was closed. And that door opened by this big, giant kind of redneck guy. And he hit me with the door. I said, what are you doing? I said, what are you doing? I said, man, I'm just walking up the street trying to find a job, brother. I didn't know there's this whole thing called off season. What are you doing? So I'm opening a dispensary tomorrow. I was like, oh, cool. I've heard about those. He's like, you got a couple hours, unload my truck. I'll pay you $10 an hour. I said, okay. I deferred back to how I grew up, which is hard work. Shut your mouth,
Hmm.
get to work, do the job correct. And I did. I moved his truck correctly. That night, he goes, you not a lot of people around here have a head on their shoulders. You want to come back tomorrow and you can open this thing for me. I pay you $10 an hour. And I said, okay. I got my job. So I got my foot in the door. And I spent 13 years in that career, made really good money, made some fantastic relationships, built skills that I now use in another industry, have a home, 2 acres, married, no debt at all. And it was just based on a belief that I could walk up the street and figure some stuff out
Huh. Wow. And so where did you meet your wife?
at the hair salon.
And was she
Yeah.
getting her haircut or were you getting your haircut?
I was getting my hair cut. She was the front desk gal. So we just kind of
Oh,
started
okay.
chatting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a good story. I'm glad I asked you that question.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you. My wife and I just celebrated. We're on our 6th year. Last year was our fifth. We got married in a barn originally. We went back and got convalidated in the church so we could go down to
awesome.
Texas and be our young nephew's godparents. So we have both have all of our sacraments.
Nice.
Yes,
Nice.
sir.
That's good. That's great. Um, yeah, being married in a barn is fine. But
Yeah.
but but my wife and I met in church,
Okay.
and we both thought I was in the choir. I'm a singer and a musician, and she was two sections over in the front row, and we both thought, well, she's probably got someone, and I kind of liked the music director, uh, and so funny thing is that her mother and her father lived in the same subdivision that I did, and we knew each other because we both walked the subdivision. So I've known her parents for 10 years, or 10 years longer than I've known her. Uh, and one day I saw her and her daughter, which is now my stepdaughter, in in her mother's driveway, which is as I was taking my Sunday walk, and I stopped in and said hi, and the rest is history. And we were married in the church, and we both had been married. This is our third time, and so we finally got it right, and we got married in the church,
So I
and
think the high level topic today is when in doubt, trust in yourself and go for a walk.
I agree. Go for a walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, and we both were at the point where, okay, I'm fine if I'm single. I got my kids, I got my job, I got my business, I got the band. I'm good. And that's at the point where you kind of surrender, say, yeah, whatever happens, happens. And then we
Yep.
found each other and we couldn't be happier.
You
So
bet.
I wish you
A
the
little bit of
best.
surrendering, a little bit of walking.
Yeah, that's right. So, Mike, as we wrap up, what are three things our listeners can do to bring more hustle and less handout to their growth strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Believe in yourself. For one, fall down 7, stand up 8. And when you have an idea in your head, don't go to friends and family with it. They just see you as Mikey. They don't see you as who you are. Go to a close friend who gets you at that level. Don't let people tell you no. Keep the yes in your head. Keep on keeping on.
Amen, brother. Well, you can follow Mike at his Blue Peaks Roofing, and there are links to there to all of his Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube channel, and all of his links and contact information will be in the show notes. So, Mike, my brother, thank you so much for coming today. As we sign off the show today, remember faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal to the metal until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyan, and Mike Pachan. Thank you so much, brother, for
Thank
being
you,
on the
man.
show
God bless
today.
y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyan, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.